What is happening, everybody? James Hancock here. Today, it is my pleasure and my privilege to review the latest film from director Paul Verhoeven, Benedetta. Who knows if I'll ever get a chance to review a new movie by Paul Verhoeven ever again. I mean, the man is 83 years old after all, but somehow, after 50 years of filmmaking, he's still going strong and making movies that make so many other filmmakers who are half his age or younger seem completely vanilla, boring, risk-averse, or just straight up irrelevant. I caught Benedetta at a press screening at the New York Film Festival, and not to worry, I won't give anything away, in that most audience members in the United States would not get a chance to see the movie until December 3rd. But let's get into it in broad strokes. I've been excited to see this film ever since I first saw one of the posters for the movie, a poster which is so titillating that I can't even show it here in this video, or YouTube will just pull down the whole review. But if you haven't seen the trailer yet, the story is good and saucy, giving us a little bit of everything: thrilling combat, dark comedy, horrific brutality, torture, self-torture, wild dream sequences, virulent plague, suicide, executions, generous helpings of corruption within the Catholic Church, and best of all, some of the steamiest sex scenes which you can possibly imagine, which will keep many audience members in a state of, shall we say, excited agitation throughout the entirety of the movie. Put simply, this is just a wild night at the movies from start to finish, which should come as no surprise to anyone who's been following Paul Verhoeven's career at any stage of his life. The movie just whizzes by for its 127-minute running time. I literally sprinted to the bathroom at one point, terrified that I would miss something particularly provocative, and I won't argue that Benedetta is Verhoeven's best, far from it. But overall, the movie is just a pure joy to watch. Benedetta is one of those vivid reminders that cinema can be big, it can be bold, full of spectacle, with liberal quantities of shocking scenes that'll keep folks talking for months. Basically the exact opposite of so many other movies today. For anyone who's attended film festivals in the past, you'll be all too familiar with that mounting sense of dread that accompanies so many other art house films when you start to feel like you're sitting down for some tasteless, joyless meal at a vegan restaurant where they pat themselves on the back for the recipe for serving a substitute for barbecue chicken that neither tastes like barbecue nor like chicken. Well, that's never been Paul Verhoeven's style. He likes to serve up big old greasy plates of steak and fries because in his hands, the art of movies is just fucking awesome, as it should be. And let's dig into a few reasons why. Benedetta is loosely based on the nonfiction book Immodest Acts, the life of a lesbian nun in Renaissance Italy, and it tells the tale of a nun named Benedetta in the 17th century. She's intensely devout from a young age. Her family takes her to a convent as a young girl, a path that she eagerly accepts, and what sets Benedetta apart from other nuns is just the wild intensity of her faith, a faith that leads to these hallucinatory dreams and out-of-body experiences, and depending upon how you interpret the movie, the ability to call down the power of God to influence her environment or the people around her. And then the story kicks into high gear with the arrival of Bartolomea, a wild and uninhibited young woman who's running away from her sexually abusive household. And Benedetta kind of takes her under her wing to show her the ropes, and there's chemistry between them from the word go. And before long, they're embroiled in one of the most sizzling love affairs I've seen on the screen in quite some time. And keep in mind, Paul Verhoeven, he directed Basic Instinct. He knows what he's doing when it comes to getting audience members' juices flowing, and he could not have found two better actresses who are absolutely fearless in their approach to the material. And I found this interesting article on Deadline where the lead actresses, Virginie Efira and Daphne Patakia, I hope I'm saying their names vaguely correctly, but in this article, they, as well as Paul Verhoeven, offer their insights on how they handled these sex scenes. The star of the movie says, "Sexuality is an interesting subject. There aren't that many directors who know how to film it. Paul Verhoeven is known from the beginning and is someone who has dealt with this major topic in an amazing way. Nudity is of no interest when it's not depicted in a beautiful way. That's not what Paul does. Everything was very joyful when we stripped off our clothes." Daphne Patakia, who plays Sister Bartolomeus, she concurred, "You forget there are these naked bodies. I have the impression that even in Paul's other films, these scenes where people are nude or making love, well, they speak reams." And the article continues saying that Patakia, she didn't even hesitate for a second when she was approached for the role, even though there are love scenes which might have been a bit scary. And she says that Paul Verhoeven immediately talked to me about the love scene, so I knew exactly how they were going to be shot. Then Paul Verhoeven chimes in general, when people have sex, they take off their clothes. So I'm stunned by the fact that we don't want to look at the reality of life. Why this Puritanism has been introduced is, in my opinion, wrong." And then he continues when he says, "What we had in the 70s, everyone on the beaches was topless. That is completely gone, and I don't think that's an improvement." But as amazing as these sex scenes in the movie might be, the main thrust of the movie is all about how the church responds to the intensity of Benedetta's visions, her out-of-body experiences, her stigmata, speaking in other voices, all that good stuff. And there's some in the church who see this as a huge opportunity to lure legions of the faithful to the region, bring in tourism, prosperity, political power, etc., while others are deeply skeptical. Charlotte Rampling is particularly good as one of the main characters who is calling bullshit on all this. So inevitably, there's a rift resulting in trials, torture, more miracles, and a plague on a biblical level depicted with more disgusting details than you could possibly imagine. It's just bananas. And for longtime Paul Verhoeven fans, they're going to be reminded quite a bit of his 1985 film, Flesh and Blood. Chaos, sex, death, these have always been irresistible to Paul Verhoeven. And looking back, what I found really interesting about the movie overall is how the story very carefully walks this tightrope between faith and skepticism, offering abundant evidence for either reading or interpretation of the story. So if Paul Verhoeven were to retire at this point, no one could blame him. He's absolutely earned himself a rest, but for my own selfish purposes, I hope he keeps directing until they shovel the dirt onto his coffin. And he's given us 3 remarkable, distinct different phases to his career so far. We have his early Dutch period with classics like Turkish Delight, Soldier of Orange, Spedders, The Fourth Man, and Flesh of Blood. That period alone would make him a living legend. But then he went to Hollywood, serving up a series of films that are some of my all-time favorite movies from my childhood up to the present day. But he had this hot streak where he directed RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, Showgirls, and Starship Troopers all in a row. And in his later years, he's taken some time off here and there, but he still found time to give us Black Book, the short film Tricked, Elle, and now Benedetta. It is just an awe-inspiring career that I think people will continue to watch obsessively for many decades to come. Just making one good movie is incredibly difficult. Having a period of good movies, say 5 or 10 years, that's even more difficult. But to be making good movies for 50 years, it puts him in a very rare elite club of filmmakers. And at some point, I'm going to have to dig into his television work from the 1960s. But what I love most about his entire career is how there's not an ounce of pretension or self-importance in this entire body of work. Paul Verhoeven, he doesn't subscribe to any ideology or agenda. He doesn't check off boxes dictated by corporate overlords. He is just an artist and he's an entertainer. And he gives us these crazy cinematic experiences. And then as individuals, we can wrestle with them or enjoy them or reject them or chop them up however we like. As far as I'm concerned, Paul Verhoeven, he's just an international treasure at this point. And I can't imagine a better way to start the film festival than with one of his movies. But I think I need to go ahead and wrap up this video. As much as I would love to sit here ranting and raving about Paul Verhoeven until I'm blue in the face, I've got to be off to another screening here in a bit, and I don't want to get behind with my reviews, so I hope you enjoyed my little rant on Benedetta. Please remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and if you want some more content, hunt down my podcast, Wrong Reel, which I'll link in the video notes below. And also, if you haven't watched any of his movies in a long time, go back and watch all of Paul Verhoeven's movies. You can thank me later, but I can't thank you enough for watching my video, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.